in just moments. Police will be giving an update on a mass shooting at a Michigan church where hundreds of worshipers were inside. Authorities say the shooter in that shooting used an assault rifle, killing 2 people and wounding at least 8 others. And you see that dark smoke coming from that church. The police chief saying at some point during the rampage, the attacker set fire to the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints in Grand Blanc Township. That's about an hour's drive northeast of Detroit. The chief saying the 40-year-old gunman was killed in a shootout with officers. Again, we are waiting on a news conference to get the very latest. First, I do want to go to CNN's Julia Vargas Jones. Julia, we're keeping our eye on that news conference. In the meantime, bring everybody up to speed on what we may learn at this news conference and if they expect to find more victims because of the fire.
Well, that is one of the key questions here. What we're expecting to hear from authorities is an update on the number of victims. We do know at least 10 were transported to a hospital with gunshot wounds. 2 of those victims, then Jessica, have died. But the police chief said earlier today that they expect many more victims as they go through that scene. We see that smoke. We see how difficult that scene looks. Now, one of the key questions here is how that fire was set. They said there was an explosive device found potentially at the scene that was being investigated. Was that the cause of the fire? We hope to learn soon. We'll also learn about these other victims. As of now, we do know that some of the people that were transported to hospital had very serious injuries. Some of those were children.
We have 2 victims who are now deceased. One additional one had died at a local hospital. And again, that suspect is deceased as well. 7 other victims at this time are in stable condition. 1 is in critical condition. Now, for the reunification, I had a question earlier about, hey, where can people call to see if their loved one is okay at the reunification center? I want to provide a number for you for that. It's 248-705-7352. Also, I know that our community is hurting right now, and we want to provide some resources for our community moving forward. At the Genesis Athletic Club in Grand Blanc for Monday and Tuesday from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m., we will have services for the community. From Wednesday to Friday, those services will be available to our community at the Grand Blanc Senior Center. That's all I have for now. I will give you another update, another press conference at 8 p.m. Thank you.
Okay, that is the latest from Grand Blanc Township in Michigan, in which law enforcement did identify the shooter as a 40-year-old named Thomas Sanford. They confirmed, as Julia was telling us, that 2 people are dead. Others are in various states at the hospital where they are receiving treatment. Again, going back to the question, though, that we still have right now, which is, as you see in some of this video, there was a massive fire that also happened at that church. And we're trying to figure out how many victims, if there were victims, because of the fire as well. Again, they did not take any questions at that press conference. So it is, we just don't know at this moment. I think we want to go back to Julia right now. Is she standing by? Julia, I know you've been following this.
Yeah, Jessica.
Yeah, I know you've been following this. What did you take away from that press conference?
Well, very little. I mean, it is important to get that update on those victims. But the main questions, and something that investigators had talked about, that very police chief talked about earlier today, was how that fire started. Now, right before we went into that press conference, I was about to explain to our viewers how this took place. You know, what we know at this point is there was a vehicle that was rammed through the front doors of that church. And then the shooter walks out of the vehicle and starts shooting shooting, but at that same time, that is when a fire starts. Now, one of the key questions investigators will be looking into is, was that due to an improvised explosive device that was found on the property of the church? Was that placed there today, right before the attack? Was that something that had been placed previous to this attack, as well as the motive? And one of the things that we have been seeing also from CNN affiliates who are on the scene is a movement of different bomb squad teams. Now, we have seen a movement of those to a residential area. We don't know what is it that they're looking for. It could be related to this explosive device found on the scene. And again, Jessica, this is, at this point, we know so very little about this man, but as we find out more, one of the key questions here is motive. Did this person have any kind of relation to the church, or was this an act of violence, of political violence, of religious violence? As this church as well, I wanted to point out to our viewers that this is a day after the leader of the church had passed away. Just yesterday, the president of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, Russell Nelson, died at the age of 101. This morning's service, I wonder if they had any mention of this, but certainly a double tragedy for this community that was already reeling from the loss of their leader just the night before. We did have a statement from the church, from the National Church, from this morning that it was issued that called this a tragic act of violence. They said that during that Sunday worship, the gunman opened fire, and early reports indicate that multiple individuals were injured. As we know, they were asking for cooperation with local authorities as these details still become available. They are working with investigators as they continue to assess the condition of these people affected. Now we're learning as well that we will be hearing more from those authorities in a press conference later on tonight.
All right, Julia Vargas-Jones with the latest. Thank you so much. I want to bring in Homeland Security Analyst Danelle Harvin. Danelle, thanks for being here with us. Okay, there's a lot of questions, as Julia was just laying out, that hours after this has happened, we still don't really have any answers to.
Let's bring in Rob D'Amico, MSNBC National Security and Intelligence Analyst and former FBI Supervisor. I got to tell you, Rob, everything about this story is absolutely horrifying. As Maya was reporting, and as we learned from that police chief in Grand Blanc Township earlier, this is a suspect who drove the car through the front doors of the church, but perhaps even more horrifyingly, aside from opening up on the hundreds of congregants there using an assault rifle, killing one, injuring at least another 10, this fire was started. They don't know how it was started, but it appears that people were trapped inside that church. So let's talk about what the FBI does at this point. I think we understand what 100 agents are going to be on scene there. Where does the FBI even begin in an investigation like this?
Well, the first part is talking to the witnesses, finding out what they have to say. There's hundreds of them, so there's going to be a team doing that. And then, as the sheriff said, they're going to start doing the search warrants for residents, anywhere he's known to live, storage locations type thing, anything that comes up. And then there's electronics. Again, they want to look at the motive. They want to look at, how long was he planning this? It talks to when you look at the fire and trying to understand what happens, because even the sheriff doesn't know exactly how that fire started, but figures it was started by the subject. Did he bring accelerants into with his car? He did the shooting, then started the fire, because the police had to take some time before they got there to engage the shooter. So there was a bit of time between that. The fact that they couldn't get out, because it looks like maybe a one-story, maybe possibly two-story building. And if there's windows, again, how did they get trapped? Because he said that too. Did he get them into a room and then lock it and block it? Like, thought went into this. So trying to understand that, but the FBI is just going to assist in that. And I think part of it's going to be figuring out, like we talked last, how many weeks ago about the shooting at the church, at the school, and when they were in there. And we talked about security for it. And we talked about putting people out front and doing other things. This wouldn't have stopped that. Driving a vehicle through the front door isn't now another threat. If you look at federal buildings, there's usually cement stanchions that go down, or huge, like if you look in front of the FBI headquarters, there's these huge planters there, and that's to prevent vehicles from getting into the building. Is that what we're going to have to start doing now at churches? putting in concrete stanchions that have poles into the ground so you can't drive a vehicle into it, because all the security methods we talked about last time, this would have broke it, because if someone was guarding the front door and they drive a vehicle through it. So now we have another thing to start worrying about. So it's getting to the point where it's out of control of how do you do proper security at places of worship and other places that people gather. So I think this is changing it because it's just another incident, another method. But it's again, thinking of the worst way to go is trapped in a fire to me. It's one of those that you're helpless and you can't get there. So I know if there's windows in those locations, people would have been breaking them, getting out. So trying to understand how this went down, I think at 5 o'clock when the conference comes on, we're going to have a lot more answers. It was good that the sheriff got out, explained what happened to get those initial things done and say, hey, we'll get those answers back to you later.
Yeah. You know, it's a point that you make. It is so sad that across this country, you hear reports of so many churches now having literally armed congregation members, taking shifts. I mean, they'll sign up for one Sunday or a Saturday and sort of take their post to make sure nothing like this.
I want to make one thing clear. This person, yet again, another person who uses violence to take life, doesn't fit the dream of the Republicans. Remember what they were saying when it came to Utah and Kirk. We were hoping it wasn't one of ours. Well, this guy fits the stereotype of one of theirs. Trump has directly connected himself to this story because normally what presidents do when they don't know what's happening is they say law enforcement continues to investigate. I don't want to make any specific comments until we have all the information. My staff is keeping me informed on a minute-by-minute basis, but what matters now is I send my love to those affected directly, to their family, their loved ones, and the entire community, right? We send our thoughts, we send our prayers. Thoughts and prayers aren't enough, but you can send those, right? That's what a normal president would do. But Trump is trying to go out and suggest this was a targeted attack. You have to couch this in recent discourse by Trump. Just in the last couple of days, he's proposed new guidelines within the federal government to classify any anti-Christian sentiment, any sentiment, even peaceful, as like anti-American, right? And that's not right. And I say that as a Christian, right? But Donald's making this political, but some people are showing, and we need to confirm this, but some people are showing that in addition to Trump directly connecting himself to this tragedy by making it political, because he's the one that did that, some people on social media are suggesting that images show this person's house had a Trump sign in front of it. Is this person a Trump supporter? We don't know yet, but Trump has connected himself to this man by his comments about the story, and there is at least some evidence that we have to build upon that this man was a Trump supporter. If we find out more, of course, I'll bring that to you, but this guy wasn't trans, he wasn't an immigrant, he was white and male, he was, he served his country, all this conservative stereotypes, and yet another one of them did it.